Chess YouTube, what is happening? So, Magnus Carlsen, he just cremated Alireza Firouzja, and no, I'm not exaggerating. First, he cremated Alireza with the bishop, and then just a few moves later, finishing off with the brutal checkmate finish. This game was just devastating. All right, in the game, Alireza, the fashion diva himself, and no, that is not an exaggeration. He opens 1e4, and Magnus goes e5. Now, both sides follow the main line for a little bit. We have knight f3, attacking the pawn, knight c6 defends, and then bishop c4, the Italian opening. This opening is just wildly popular at all levels of the game, but especially the super GM level these days. Now, both sides follow the main line for a little bit. Black, bishop c5, developing his bishop, a solid move. White, c3, threatening d4. Black, knight f6, threatening the pawn on the e4 square. There is no time for d4 now. Well, technically you can play it, but d3 is a little bit stronger. That is what the fashion diva himself plays in the game. And now, so far, so good. Both sides following the main line. And from here, Black normally goes, for example, d6, and then a6, and then castles, and so on. But instead, in the game, Magnus throwing a big curveball on move 5. He plays the move h6. Okay, what is the idea behind this move? Has Magnus lost his mind here? Well, the idea is you're trying to guard g5 and stop bishop g5 ideas, but honestly, that wasn't that big of a threat. Now, Hikaru Nakamura, starting in the 2024 Candidates Tournament, sort of popularized this line for Black, but the big problem with it is White here can simply go b4, gaining space on the queen side and sort of getting a little bit of an edge. And Alireza, this guy came ready for a fight. He goes for it. b4 is the move. Now we have a fighting game on our hands. Now, where is the bishop going to go? Obviously, e7 and b6 are the best squares. You don't want to go back to f8. f8's too passive, and d6 is just super, super awkward. You don't want to go there either. In the game, bishop b6 was chosen. Now, a4, threatening the Noah's Ark trap. You don't want to fall for that right there. So Black obviously has to go, for example, a6 or a5, giving the bishop a retreat square on a7 if it needs it. In the game, a6 was chosen, but here's the big problem with this line for Black. Typically in the Italian, when Black goes a6, the bishop is going to go to a7 in response to b4. However, now the bishop is on b6, where it's a little more vulnerable. For example, a knight may go to c4 later, the pawn may go to a5 later. White's going to have some ways to harass the bishop, and it's just misplaced on b6. Magnus, why did you enter this line? Comment down below if you think you understand better than I do why Magnus played this weird h6 line, bishop b6, a6. It makes no sense to me, but I'm just a 2,000 rated player online, so what can I say? All right, both sides castle. Castles, knight b d2, the standard square for the knight. Of course, the knight likely going to f1, then g3 later in the game, trying to find a home on the best square, g3. Now Black goes d6, bolstering e5, and beyond that, opening up the scope of this bishop. Bishop e6 is now likely coming, and also knight e7 to g6 ideas are also in the air for Black. Now, Alireza, h3, guarding g4, solid idea from White. And now finally, bishop a7. As I explained earlier in the game, in this line for Black, the bishop typically goes to the a7 square. But instead, it's going to b6 and then a7. Black is literally down a tempo versus the absolute main line of the Italian. This position right here is one of the absolute main lines of the Italian, except typically Black is to move. And Black normally goes, for example, rook e8, then bishop e6. Black is just down a tempo here. There's no compensation. Alireza, can he capitalize on this lead here? All right, he continues. Rook e1, a standard move. And now Black, the standard plan here is rook e8 and then bishop e6. But again, Magnus, marching to the beat of a different drummer. He goes knight e7, intending knight g6, and then maybe c6 and d5. A more aggressive but slower idea from Black. Now, Alireza, this is his chance to seize the center. The knight is no longer guarding d4, and therefore the d4 break immediately is incredibly strong. Instead, he goes down to the f1 square with the knight. Knight f1, Alireza playing on autopilot a little bit. Not a bad move by any means, but missing the chance to really punish Black here. Now, Black, knight g6, we have knight g3. Both knights finding their best squares on g3 and g6, where they support the e5, e4 pawns, and also where they eye the f5 and f4 squares like this. By far the best squares for these knights in this opening for both sides. Now, black, Magnus, he actually seizes control of the center. He goes c6, threatening d5. Alireza, he retreats back with the bishop. Bishop b3, but then d5 comes anyway. Magnus, how does he do it? He seizes control of the center before white does, and Magnus here is bringing the fight to the fashion diva himself. Now here, this is a critical moment in the game. White's got a ton of options. You can take on d5. You can go d4 yourself. You can go c4, b5, or a5. Which is it going to be in the game? Alireza, he takes on d5. E takes d5 is the move, but it might not be the best. Instead, moves like, for example, d4, c4, and a5 may be a little bit stronger. Instead, taking on d5, releasing the tension in the center. Black takes back with the knight, the strongest move here. Now, typically, if you can take back with the pawn, that is often better. However, in this position, white has so much pressure on the center with the knight, the bishop, the rook, and so on. Taking with the knight is a little more solid, a little more conservative. Now, of course, the knight threatening the pawn on c3. The fashion diva, he does not miss this. Bishop d2 is the move, defending c3. And black, rook e8, both sides, bringing out more and more pieces into the attack. Now, here, Alireza, he continues. Queen c2, a standard square for the queen in this opening. However, he's missing a big opportunity for white. Here, there's a much stronger sequence of moves for white. See if you can find it. Comment down below if you can find the right strategic idea for white in this position. And of course, the idea is c4, driving back the knight, and then you go c5, locking out the bishop. For example, c4, knight to f6, and then c5. That is the idea. Locking out this piece, getting a strong hold on the queen side here. Instead, in the game, queen c2 played, defending c3 again. Not bad, but not the best. Black, bishop e6, the standard square for that piece. And already, Magnus, he's slowly but surely taking over in this game. Alireza, rook ad1, centralizing. He's officially completed development of all of his pieces. Literally every piece for white is out into the game. And now he's got to find some way to attack, some way to increase the pressure on black. All right, Magnus, queen c7. Here, he is simply completing development. The rooks are connected. Every piece is out. The middle game has officially begun, if it has not begun yet. And by the way, I do want to point out here, there is also the ludicrous bishop sacrifice. Bishop takes h3. If you want to investigate that one on your own, feel free to do so. That is actually the strongest move here. Anyways, in the game, queen c7 played. Now, Alireza, he finally finds the key c4, c5 idea. He's ready, c4, driving back the knight. The knight goes to f4. Alireza, he knows that knight is too dangerous. He captures on f4. Bishop takes f4. The knight takes, and then c5, blocking out the bishop. All right, here we go. Black, bishop takes b3, trading pieces. Queen takes b3, and then Magnus Carlsen, he goes a5, the very strong move, the deflection pawn sacrifice. The idea being if you take on a5 or if you go b5, then the pawn on c5 will fall. Magnus finding the key idea, not letting the fashion diva go a5 himself, locking down the queen side. That's what he wants, but instead, Magnus, he's one move too fast. a5 is the move, attacking on b4, attacking on c5. Here we go. Alireza, he's got to find a way to navigate these complications. What is it going to be? It turns out here the strongest idea is knight to f5, intending knight d6, putting the octopus on d6 right in the center of the board. Instead here, d4 is the move. Alireza initiating massive complication in the center. The pawn tension here is simply off the hook. I mean, look at all these ideas, but it turns out d4 here is not the right way forward. Magnus, he takes on d4, the strongest move. We trade rooks. Rook takes, then rook takes d4. Alireza winning back material, but here black is firmly in control. Magnus, rook d8 is the move, offering the rook trade, not finding the stronger idea, knight e6, but rook d8 also not too bad. Now here, taking on d8 is clearly best, but instead Alireza in time pressure, less than 3 minutes left on the clock. Rook to e4 is the move, sliding over. Now A takes b4, rook takes b4, and finally rook d7, defending along the 7th rank, defending b7, and renewing the threat on c5 with the bishop. Here, Alireza, rook to e4, ignoring the pawn on c5, and Magnus takes it. Bishop takes c5. Magnus officially up a pawn on the queen side. He's got a pass pawn on c6 and a massive advantage here. Alireza, he's got to find some way to attack the black king if it goes into an endgame. If the queens come off the board, Magnus, being up a pawn, being the greatest endgame player of all time, he's going to be clearly for choice in the endgame. Therefore, the pressure is on right here, right now, for Alireza to find a way to pressure in the middle game. And here on move 29, Alireza, he chokes. He chokes. Queen to c4 is the move, but this is not the right idea. And here Magnus, he immediately finds the way to punish white, for his mistake. Instead here, the key move for white, rook to e8, maintaining the attack, but instead queen c4. Alireza, he thinks he has the double attack on the knight and the bishop, but he is wrong. Here, of course, if Magnus says go backs with the bishop, the knight falls. If the knight retreats, the bishop falls. But here, Magnus, he finds the key resource, the key idea to launch the unstoppable attack and simply cremate Alireza on the spot. The move here is bishop takes f2, the bishop sack. The problem here, no matter what you do, if you move the king, if you take on f2, no matter what you do, you are simply burnt toast here. All right, in the game, Alireza, he takes the bishop. What else can you do? But here, the key move, knight d3, jumping in with the knight, forcing the king back. Where's he going to go in the game? Alireza, king to e3 is the move. But now, the problem, the knight on the g3, it's going to fall. Even if you go back to, say, f1 or g1, the knight falls either way. King to e3 played in the game. What is the king doing on that square? Queen takes g3 is the move. Look at this, the piece coordination of the goat, the knight being pinned, the knight on d3, the octopus, the rook supporting the knight. Alireza, he's on the ropes. Rook e8 hits the king. It's not enough. Queen h7. Now queen to e4, g6. What can white do to delay the inevitable? There simply isn't that much. Here, the computer actually says rook h8 might be the best move trying to delay checkmate. But instead, here in the game, rook e7 played, threatening the rook. But finally, in this position, Magnus Carlsen, with 3 minutes left, he simply seals the deal with the very strong move, queen to f2, delivering the checkmate versus the fashion diva himself, Alireza Firouzja. Wow, what a game in the Esports Cup final. Magnus Carlsen playing the super weird opening, basically playing down a tempo, going bishop b6, then a7, down a tempo versus the main line of the Italian. But Magnus, when you're this good, you can simply do these things and still win and still crush the middle game. Really, really bizarre stuff. All right, Chess YouTube, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please smash that YouTube like button, comment down below what you thought of the game, and so on. And by the way, I do have a one-on-one coaching program. Only 6 spots are left. If you want to apply, go to my free community link. It's right up there, school.com/chessmindset. Just type that into your browser, go there, join the community. The pinned post in that community is for my coaching program. I have 10 spots total, 4 are filled, 6 spots are left. If you want to reach 1,000, 1,500, or even 2,000 ELO, this is my all-in, everything plus the kitchen sink program with one-on-one coaching, daily games versus me, sparring games versus me, priority DM access, private courses, custom opening files, literally everything I can do to help you blow up your rating as soon as possible is in this program. And trust me, I am over-delivering for all of my clients right now. You can ask any of them if you don't believe me. So again, if you want one-on-one coaching with me, join my free community. There's a link to book a call with me over Zoom. I'll explain everything over Zoom to you. So if you want to reach your goals faster, that is what you want to do. Go to the community, book a call with me, and we'll go from there. And as always, I wish you the best of luck in your chess improvement journey in 2025 and beyond. And I'll see you in the next video.